And endurance. Man, could y'all have picked a more perfect title for this evening's event? I think that endurance is the perfect title for this talk and for this evening. Matter of fact, it's a perfect thing to describe my life in general. Endurance is defined as the power to endure a difficult or unpleasant process without giving way. And I think too many people overlook the beginning of that definition, the power to endure. Now, they could have said having to endure, they could have said the ability to endure, they could have said the great misfortune to endure, and that's usually the way that we all go about our lives, thinking, you know, woe is me, I have to deal with this. But the power to endure, and I think that there's great power in the defining of that. Why do you think it is that they use the term power? Now, this is going to be a controversial statement to some, but I consider it a privilege and an honor to endure. A privilege and an honor. Enduring pain is an indication that you're getting stronger. Enduring hardship is an indication that you're maturing. Enduring aches and pains is a way that you know. As an artist, I've always wrestled with this idea of endurance because it's something that creatively controls how you put messages out there into the world. A lot of people at this point right now in society seem to be running from their truest selves as to not offend and to not make people feel uncomfortable. But as an artist, I think that now is a time where we have to be encouraging our creative minds, both artistically and educationally, our students as well, to fight against that impulse, the impulse to go along, the impulse to be like everybody else, the impulse to blend in. Because it's that impulse to be an individual that makes us who we are. It's that impulse to say the thing that nobody else wants to say that actually is most necessary right now, more than ever before. The boldness and the audacity to say and to do what authentically feels right in your spirit is something that we have to be able to listen to more so. And artistically, that's something that I've always tried to really harp on, because I don't want to live in a world where people live their lives in fear, constantly censoring themselves out of a deeply embedded sense of worry about how they will be judged and how people will react. But sadly, that appears to be the direction that we're headed towards. Anytime that artists and comedians and writers and creatives and more people of influence are more fearful of hurting people's feelings or offending them than they are passionate about making authentic art, the work becomes watered down and less authentic. We lose some from outside influences. It has to come from within. We have to start carrying ourselves like we know that we are descendants of the unbreakable. And I learned that lesson myself when I was an NFL athlete. Even though I was a first-round draft pick, when I got to my first team in Buffalo, I struggled. Not because the game was too hard, but just because I couldn't get on the field. The coaching staff and me weren't seeing eye to eye, and they took that out on me by depriving me of playing time. And what that did was it painted a narrative about me in public that I wasn't talented, that I couldn't play. And what follows something like that for a first-round draft pick? Most of the brothers in the room know what's going to happen. You get called a bust. You get called a failure. You get called a wasted pick. You get called all of these things. Again, enduring. Being able to understand that when I wake up in the morning and I'm reading a whole bunch of articles written by people that have never sat in front of me a day in their life or know my story, where I come from or what I'm passionate about, but decide that they want to define me for me, that takes endurance. It takes a thick skin. It takes a toughness that we aren't intuitively born with, but we have to develop through years and years of trial and error, of tribulations. And that's something that was a hard lesson for me to learn. But once I learned that lesson, it gave me a power that I will never give back for the rest of my life, and something that I want every single kid growing up in a messed up circumstance to be able to adopt for themselves. Because only you have the ability to define you. And right now, I'm not even talking to any of these well-dressed people that are sitting in front of me. I'm talking to the students that are watching virtually. Every single one of you that have had to fight through adversity during this time of COVID, during this time of social distancing, during this unprecedented time where you've had to fight through more adversity just to get an education than anybody in the history of this country, you should be proud of yourselves. You should understand that you are unbreakable. You should understand that there is nothing that is out of your reach if you decide to commit yourself to it. You should understand that in this time right now, you are exactly what this world needs because you have all of the tools to bring us into a brighter tomorrow. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves. Thank you. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves who we are. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of the greatness that is embedded within us, the divine right that we have been given by our Creator to go out and to create the change that we want to see in the world around us. That's something that we all have a moral responsibility to do at some point in our lives and to take hold of, but also something that we have to demand more of one another from. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that everybody that critiques us isn't trying to attack us. Some people genuinely mean well and want to see us succeed, but their delivery is trash. And sometimes, I was trying to spit back then. Our city isn't going to change until those of you that are in these seats as students and those of you that are watching as students come back here and fix it for us. If we had all the answers, things would have changed by now. If I had all the answers, things would have changed by now. So I hate to hand the baton off so early, but our solution and our future is y'all. And at the end of the day, that's going to mean that you're going to have to endure a whole lot of pain. You're going to have to endure a whole lot of hardship. You're going to have to endure a whole lot of sleepless nights, early mornings. But at the end of the day, if the world that you're fighting for is actually worth living in, it's worth the sacrifice. And it's also important for all of us to realize that it doesn't stop with enduring. That's just the first step. Like I said in the beginning, before anything can be overcome, it first has to be endured. We endured slavery in this country, but we overcame it. We endured Jim Crow in this country, but we overcame it. We endured sexism and classism and so many things in this country, but every single day we come closer to overcoming it. The key is not to get comfortable in enduring your pain. It's to get angry, but to be a critical thinker about how we apply that anger, to figure out the best solutions for us going forward as a community, as a city, as a family, as a human species. That's the point that we're at. And we want you, our young people, our leaders of tomorrow, to be the ones that carry us across the finish line. We need you to carry us across the finish line because you can see these gray hairs ain't going anywhere. I'm on my way to where Dr. Draper and all of them are in a few decades. But hey, I still got some energy. But to close, again, it doesn't stop with enduring, it stops with overcoming. When I came back to Baltimore, I didn't come to be a perpetual victim for the rest of my life. I came to change things.